Hey vinyl community, Jeff here. I'm going to do a quick contest entry that I just learned about. Actually, the contest should have expired by now, but I'm like, I guess it's too late. But then I saw that there was a second post showing that it had been extended for a couple more days. So it ends like on the 25th. And we are looking at, what are we today? The 22nd. So let's jump on board. This is for Clifford, the Vinyl Cheapskate. I've been a subscriber for a while, but, you know, I have so many channels that I don't always see everybody's videos. And so I did miss the initial contest announcement in February that was supposed to end on March 10th. But basically, he hit 100, and he was having a celebration for hitting 100 subscribers. He is now at 161-ish. So anyway, I have a link below. You can go check out his channel and make sure you subscribe, and we can get him up a couple hundred more real quick. And yes, you can jump on the contest. You have a couple more days, and he's giving away some albums from his collection there that you can have a chance to win. Basically, 5 questions, all dealing with cheapskate type ideas. So let's get right into it. Number 1 is show me a dollar record. I had some that I found, and there was quite a few at this time. They were all $1, and it was kind of a thrift store, but it was more one of those habitat stores where they take in a lot of donations, kind of like a thrift store, and they sell it to help build houses for people. And so I picked up quite a few that day, but these 3 were easy to grab real quick. I picked up 3 Jeff Beck albums I'm going to show. This one I had not heard of. You know, I'm not a huge, don't know a whole lot about Jeff Beck. You know, obviously the name is popular, but I saw this album. Not only did it intrigue me, you know, the way it looked, but then I'm like, hey, that looks like Cozy Powell. And sure enough, it is. He's one of my, you know, I really like his drumming and everything. So I grabbed that real quick. And then, of course, you know, this is one of his later, like, 80s albums. And then, of course, this one that I had not ever had before. Up next, show me some cheap heat. What he means by that is an album that is usually always inexpensive, but a great album. Now, of course, this can be very subjective because, you know, a great album to me could be not so much of a great album to you. But I was trying to be a little more, trying to think of things that I see frequently. And so this is a band. There's a couple bands that I see all the time that I actually purchase because I'm like, you know, I know the band, but I never really bought anything by them. But they're always in the bins and they're always inexpensive, so I'm going to take a chance. This was not one of them, but this is a band that I kind of knew a little about, never had much in my collection. And because I'm always running across them, you know, inexpensively, I went ahead and made a jump. And that's April Wine. I mean, we listened to this album back in the day it came out. So I was familiar with some of the songs, but again, they were just a rock band, Canadian rock band. They weren't really metal, and in the day I was listening mostly to metal. They were kind of rock, hard rock, but I knew they were good. And so I had, as I see them, I grabbed them. And this is just one of the ones, probably one of the more popular ones. I had some hits from here that, you know, you see always in the inexpensive bins along with Power Play. I see this one all the time. Great album. And their earlier stuff. I picked up some of their earlier stuff a couple months ago that was in a, inexpensive and a antique store. And, you know, so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get some more April Wine. They've got some really good stuff. And so there's the albums in this late 70s, early 80s era were really good. This is one I see all the time in the bin, and this is going to be very subjective because to me, everybody should have this. It's a wonderfully, beautifully pop sensation, but people are going to laugh. But, you know, I'm talking the Partridge Family. You find their stuff in the inexpensive bin all the time. And honestly, I'm a big fan, and I love all their stuff, and I would love to buy it all up. But their first album, I'm always finding it too, and it's got some of their, you know, great songs. And this is even before they really got established as, you know, the David Cassie sensation. This was kind of like the Shirley Jones story. And hey, here's little David, let's see if he can sing. And then, you know, it turns out he can. And then so after this, all the following Partridge Family albums were David Cassidy featured more than Shirley Jones. But still, this is a great album. Some classics on here. And so, yeah, I really dig the stuff by the Partridge Family. And you can find it in almost every store inexpensive. Now, funny thing, Danny Bonaducci, the, you know, pretend bass player on the Partridge Family TV show, he has a TikTok channel that I've been watching, and he goes around to everywhere he goes from town to town. He'll go to thrift stores and antique stores and find Partridge Family albums, take them out of the collection, autograph them, and put it back in the collection, and then put on TikTok, hey, I'm at so-and-so record store. I just signed this album. Go find it. and then you're supposed to go find the album that he signed and then do a TikTok response to him. That I have seen one other person so far respond to him, but it is very fun. You know, it's just to see him. He goes out sometimes with the son who's videoing him, and he just goes in there, and he's kind of, I'm going to sign this and put it back. And, you know, I'm sure the store owners may not complain too much if they realize who he is, but that's just kind of neat all these years later for him to be doing that. Just, you know, I'd love to find a copy with his signature on it. So anyway, moving on, a great all-around score. Okay, so this one, part of this is Cheapskate, part of it's not, but to me it was a great score. And so one of the ones that I found in a kind of an antique mall, and the price was right. I could not believe I found this, and so to me, my heart was racing. I'm like, wow, this is an original. It's a repress of the original, but it's still the same year. So in other words, they pressed it and then they repressed it. But when I scored a copy of Dirk Wears White Sox by Adam and the Ants, the original UK 1979 pressing, the second pressing in 1979, I guess from what I'm seeing online, it's still original year, original album, original cover, original mix, everything. Because the US version that came a couple years later was totally different. They mixed some of the songs differently. This is the original, one of my favorites. I was so thrilled when they released this on CD, remastered with bonus tracks a couple years before, and then I found this on vinyl record. I was just like so excited to find a copy of this, and it was for a really good price. I mean, you know, because Adam Ant's another one of those kind of a cheapies you find. I'm a big Adam Ant fan, so if you see that kind of stuff, that can also follow into the cheap heat. If you really like Adam and the Ants like I do, I find him all the time in the inexpensive stuff. Most of his records can be found like that. This one I showed recently, which to me, again, major find, semi-grail, but not so much because it's hard to find, but just so much because it's hard to find at a decent price. It was when I picked up the Captain Beyond album just a couple weeks ago. The first album, lenticular cover, and I got it in the $4 bin. And when I got it and I opened it and I looked at it, it had some white stuff on it. It looked kind of like somebody puts, I don't know, it was like white, almost like, it almost looked like somebody taking some like white medicine or something. I don't know. It was weird. And I kind of tried to play it to see what it sounded like, and it was, it was fuzzy. But then I gave it a clean, and it just, I could not believe how much better it was restored. I got some pictures before and after that I'm probably showing at this point, but so then I cleaned it up a week or so ago, and even though it's got a couple scuffs on it, and then I played it, and I'm like, it sounds amazing. So it feels back like it's a VG to a VG Plus. I was so thrilled to find that for that price. So now this is one, not so much the cheapskate category, depends on how cheap you want to say cheapskate, but this is the Dream Theater box set of the Astonishing. Now this is a 2016 release. I didn't start buying records again until 2017. By that time, this would have been a lot more expensive than it retailed for when it came out. But I had a friend online who had some records, ran into some money problems. He said, look, Jeff, you really like these bands. I want to pass them on to you for a good price. I'm just trying to raise a couple dollars for this or that. And he sold me a handful of albums, this included. And this is a 4 LP set with the booklet and everything. And if I recall, he sold this to me for like $30, which is unheard of. This is a $60, $70 set, even to this day. But at that time, it was fairly new. It was probably pushing 2 years old. So at that point, it was still kind of new and expensive. So to me, this was a great score all around. So let's see. A budget bin steal. That would have to be A Quiet Riot, the just a self-titled QR, basically Quiet Riot 4 with Paul Shortino. This is a 180 gram repress that I found still sealed just last year, I believe, in a kind of a, the place reminded me of kind of like a Barnes & Noble type superstore, but slightly different with a different name. And they had a bunch of records, and it was new and used, and this was brand new, and I was surprised. It was very inexpensive compared to what it goes for online. So to me, this was just one of, this is not cheapskate in the sense that it was like really cheap, but it was for a repress of something that had been released a couple years ago, and with prices these days, that was a really good price. And then last, a great thrift store find. I found quite a few things at thrift stores. Most of the thrift store stuff tends to be, older, classic rock, pop, stuff like that. But it kind of shocked me. And of course, this totally is outside of my normal listening habits. But I was familiar with the band, familiar with their songs. Couldn't believe I found this in the thrift store because it's fairly new. And that's Imagine Dragons, Smoke and Mirrors. Now, this is a fairly new album, and, a modern artist that's still around, very popular. Now, found it in a thrift store. Found this in a couple jazz albums, David Sanborn, stuff like that. So I picked them all up out of the section, and I went up to the thing. Albums at the store don't, they don't have prices. They're just a little sign that says whatever, $2 a piece or whatever. So picked them up, went up there, paid for them all, went, excited, went home. When I got home, I found on the back of this one, there was a little price thing that said like $8. Now, I didn't see that. Honestly, I did not see that. The lady at the counter did not see that. They were just rung up as miscellaneous albums. So it would have been a little more expensive. They did price it, which is really rare because albums at these stores, Goodwill and stuff, don't have prices. But this one did. So it really should have been a little more, but I ended up walking out of there with it at like $2. So anyway, cool stuff. Modern artist, if you're into that kind of stuff. And that was one of my better thrift store finds. I find all kinds of things that, I'll come out of there with 4 or 5 different things, but it all tends to be, Little River Band and stuff like that. Just classic rock and pop stuff. So great stuff. Anyway, that's all. I won't go any longer with this. Clifford the Final Cheapskate. Check him out. Link below. Thanks a lot for watching. Rock on and rock hard.